Hey everyone, it's me, Sean Capri, and before we get to today's show, I want to thank everybody for who supports us at patreon.com/makeusbetter, especially our platinum executive producers, Corey Hicks at twitch.tv/chicks_18, and Mr. Mark Moody at youtube.com/outoflives. Our gold executive producers, Mike VC and Panache Malloy, and our amazing executive producers, Kyle Haiman, new executive producer, Brendan Myers, Tony Hutchinson, Donnie Reece, Stephen Iafrate, Lincoln is high-fiving me on every name, Caro Underwood, Dante Bellini Jr., Jared Gauthier, Dude427, Kevin Austin, Josh Borbone, Tammi Ryan, Robert Bobby Miller, Tim Aulph, Martini Jean, David Ray. You guys have completely changed our lives. And if you haven't already, please, consider it, at least, jumping on board at patreon.com/makeusbetter. Supports me in 4 ways, right here, We the GamerCast, twitch.tv/Sean Capri, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, If We Ran Nintendo with Bobby and Jason, and of course, the Xbox Drive with Luke Lohr. Bah, now let's get on to the show. Bah. Sean Capri and Lincoln Capri is here. Welcome to episode 171 of We the GamerCast. It publishes on iTunes and Google Play every single Monday, and youtube.com/WeTheNerdy every single Monday. Thank you for subscribing, hitting a thumbs up, and rating the show on iTunes. And Lincoln is just loving this. He's got a Wii U Pro controller in his hand, because that's where we're at in the generation. The controllers that I don't care about go to Lincoln. I mean, it's a controller I totally care about, right? Oh, he's so freaking cute. He's getting camera shy right now. Guys, thank you so much for being here, and we're gonna have a really quick little intro. I wanted to say hello. Hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having a great day. Hope everything is going well in your lives. Lincoln stinks right now. He's a stinky Linky. So we're gonna do this. If that's okay with you, Lincoln, we're gonna do this. Say hi to the people, and give a couple shout outs maybe, and then maybe later tonight, Mom and Dad will watch some Big Brother, right? And then maybe one day you'll do these like little small talks like Adam Leonard did with his kid who beat. Did you know Adam Leonard's kid beat Mario Odyssey before he turned 3 years old? I think that's how it went. Or 4. He was 3 when he beat it. Anyways, guys, I went through a couple shows that I was on last week, but I don't think that I got all of them. Did I say Radio's Lame? I was on Radio's Lame. I was on, I missed Foot in the Door. footinthedoorpod.com, Ed Placencia's show. So thank you to Ed. That was really awesome, man, to just kind of like, I don't know, it sounds weird to say, like, be on the other side, talk about myself. He forced me to talk about myself for a little while. So it was good just to catch up with Ed. I'm a big fan. I've been playing quite a few games, guys, as most of you know, over at twitch.tv/Sean Capri. Rolling through some of the games. I am officially allowed to play Forza Horizon 4 starting on Friday, just this past Friday, and all the way up until release. So I can't really tell you much other than to stop by and see how much I'm playing it, I guess, is what I'm probably allowed to say. I hope to see you guys there. I can't believe this game came out, actually, I have it quite early, so I'm going to be playing as much of it as freaking possible over the next little bit. Maybe even jump back into Spidey. I might be done Tomb Raider for now, but I will talk about that more on the Xbox Drive. I'm trying to keep that one short so you guys can get both of these in here. Lincoln also really likes the part in Frozen where she sings the song and goes, so that might be what you guys are hearing over to the side. Why don't we, see? Yeah, you got it, buddy. Why don't we jump right into my conversation this week is with Bronson Fiori. He comes, actually, Thomas King, who you guys might remember doing that duo episode with Tammi Ryan a few months ago, a little while back. And he's like, Bronson needs to be on the show, and he tagged him, and so this is it. This is what we talked about, some stuff about getting paid for doing all this stuff, trying to like make a living and going to E3. It's a great chat, so why don't we get into it? Follow him on Twitter at GameCraft. You're supposed to yell his name. It's Bronson Fiori!
They wanted me to help them with their stream and whatnot, so I was like, yeah, okay, sure.
What kind of games are they playing? What are they gonna set up with the stream?
It's a variety stream. So we've done God of War.
Oh yeah.
Like one. Tales from the Borderlands.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I'd be down.
I'm, it's not often that we do topical here on We the GamerCast, but like this is kind of happening, and to be honest, it's one of the first like very like surprises I think in the gaming industry where it's like, wait a minute. Well, I guess it depends. Maybe I'll throw it to you. Like, are you surprised to hear Telltale's shutting down just yesterday, and it seems like in a catastrophic kind of way?
Like, I'm surprised that it's like just such a like fucking like big, just like, oh, we're done.
Right.
Like I was like expecting like, we'll finish like The Walking Dead and like slowly ramp down. Just like, nope, close up shop.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was weird, especially because like I'm on their like PR list to get like press releases and stuff, and like there was no indication of that at all. Like it was just business as usual.
Do you think people would have been more apt to like support the games over the years if like any of it? Because I don't think any of us knew they were in trouble. I think like for my first reaction, I think a lot of people on the internet were echoing this, is that they're cashing in on all these licenses. Like that's why they don't want to work on their engine or anything like that. Was because why do that when people are just like buying up all these things? When actually, if we look this like retrospectively, it seems like they were just trying to keep their head above water, just trying to have like as many projects on the go just to try and like keep it together, when I think the perspective or perception was these guys are money grubbing, money hungry mother effers, you know? It's like it's completely opposite.
I think that what happened is like they had that massive hit with that first season of The Walking Dead, which makes sense. Like that was a huge game. It was very much a surprise. Funnily enough, that was my first ever review copy.
Oh, really?
And it was, and like that was like game of the year for the company I was working for at the time. Mm-hmm. And like we thought, oh, Telltale has like something here, and then I think they just expanded way too quick.
Mm-hmm. Like, well, that's the thing. That was the perspective, was that they thought that they could just like ride that out, and it seemed like they were just going to be able to make money no matter what. But from everything that I've seen a couple of charts and things like that where it's like it wasn't even close. So I think that people maybe didn't support them because they thought they were good. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like maybe people would have been more inclined to support that developer, but they seemed like they were enormous and they didn't need every purchase. Where I think with some smaller developers, like you want to help them, you want to buy. So it kind of does the flip side of things. Like with Ninja Theory, with Hellblade, I think got a lot of support because they were small. But I don't know. Do you think companies and developers should be more open about like their current status of, are they on the brink, or maybe just continue to act as if everything is fine?
I think that I don't think they should be like I think there's a middle ground they need to hit.
Yeah.
I think Ninja Theory does a good job with it. I think also that Telltale just like expanded just way too fast. They I hired a bunch way more dev teams, started way more projects, got on with a bunch of licenses like way too fast. And it's a bummer because I really like a lot of those games.
Yeah, the expansion of the team tells me that there was at least some money to be had. And of course, the first game, Telltale, the Walking Dead, obviously a success. So it's maybe is it a mismanagement? And aside from that too, because I have 10,000 things that I want to talk to you about, but I kind of want to tie this into you being in the game industry as well, and anybody listening. A lot of people listening do their own thing, and a lot of us are on that path of that dream of working in games. And I feel like from a developer standpoint, at the very least, a lot of stories are coming out of, guys, if you're working overtime, get paid for it. You value your time, and your mental health and your value is there. A lot of stories coming out that all my sleepless nights, and I think one tweet from one of the developers on the team, a character artist, I think, say all my sleepless nights and long hours and overtime, I'm not going to get severance. My healthcare or my health insurance is up next week, and it's totally not worth it. So looping it back to you, Bronson, I wanted to kind of loop that back into does that do anything to you in terms of pushing yourself and creating content, doing the things that you do? Does it put it into perspective at all, or how does this affect you, if at all?
So I think that game development and games media are they're different in a lot of ways, but similar in that aspect.
Yeah.
Of I remember Patrick Klepek over at Waypoint always said hey, if you're a writer, you should almost never work for free.
Right.
Never just work for exposure. And I don't necessarily fully agree with that because like you need to get something on your resume at start.
I agree.
But like once you hit a point, like you should have that point of like, hey, I don't do it for free. There's very few, like I still do some free work here and there, but like for the most part, like I'm like, check please.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been writing and hosting for professionally 8 years, technically 10 total.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's one of those things where it's a, like, you want to be very passionate about it. It's your baby, and I get that. But you also need to, like, think about, like, okay, like, especially in the case of, like, game development, in a lot of cases, if you're not in the indie space, like, this is a big, giant company. They could dick me over at any moment.
Right.
So, like, because, like, I also work a day job where I work in insurance, and, like, I'm like, dude, I wouldn't work in insurance for free. Like
the dream. You mean you didn't grow up like, man, I can't wait one day, if I'm lucky, I'll be able to be that guy working at State Farm.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me about like that shift over, because I think that like making that change into being a professional in a lot of spaces, in a lot of like those soft skill spaces, or even like technical skills, or something that's not necessarily going to place you in a like 9 to 5. You're at a desk and you're going to get paid there, or hourly, like as a lawyer. Like some of these are difficult jobs, I think, to get into, because none of us really have a conceptual idea of what does that job even entail. My wife, for example, is a photographer, and like how do you go, like for her, going from just amateur enthusiast to like, no, I do this for a living and I will charge for this service. Talk to me about like that transition for you of going from doing free work for exposure to like that first time. Do you remember the first time that you got hired on? Was it you asking for money, or was it you applying for a freelance job, or how did that transition work for you?
It was, so that was actually not that long ago. It was actually only 2 or so years ago. But the other thing I was working on was like my project,
right?
Like my thing. So It's just like, well, I'm going to work for free for my own thing. But I got contacted by Murder Palace. I'm not sure if you know who they are.
Nope.
They partner with Destructoid. They're run by a extra Destructoid peep and an ex-PlayStation guy. They're going to blow up pretty big here soon, but they contacted me and a friend of mine being like, hey, we want you guys to write some scripts and then like maybe eventually host some videos. And they're like, would you be willing to do that? And we're like, yeah, but like, we kind of got our own thing to work on. So like, would you be willing to pay us? And they're like, okay, how does $100 a script sound? Which isn't a whole lot of money, but it's like the fact that they were, when every other place was like exposure,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they were willing to say, hey, cash, like, that was a big plus. And then, one of our things got thrown up on Detoid, which, Detoid isn't what it used to be, but it's still very large. And, so I think it's one of those things where you have to sit down and be like, okay, is the, like, how much is this exposure and resume building worth versus like the money I could be getting? Like, do I have enough exposure and a big enough resume to go to someone and be like, hey, pay me?
Right.
Yeah.
And do you think like there's almost like an incongruity with sites that are actually too small to give you any exposure, who are also the ones, and are also too small to give you any money, but the ones that are big enough to pay you have already figured out the revenue source, and you'll actually get maybe more. You'll actually get both, so you kind of end up shortchanging yourself like 2 times over when you're working for free. Because usually, like, I don't know too many big sites worth their salt that will be having people put articles up or put content up on their site when they're not paying for it. I don't know if there's anything like that. Like IGN pays everybody who puts anything up there, unless it's like they used to do blog posts that were highlighted. That's maybe a little bit different, but they would almost like pick out things that people would put up there. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of the side of my mouth here, or talking out of my ass, but I don't know if there's anything like that.
I think that, so back at the Gamer Access, I was in charge of like finding new people to like make content. Like that was one thing that like Nick was like, hey, do you guys know anyone? And I went out and I looked for people. And the thing is like there's this very large range of like middle tier sites where they're not like, they're like below the millions, below like the high 100,000s, but above the 10,000s,
Mm-hmm.
where they can't really afford to pay you much or at all, and they also can't, and they just kind of give you okay exposure,
Right.
And it's this thing where, like, it's really easy to get in that field and get stuck there and just be kind of stuck there until you do get something from a Detoid, an IGN, an Escapist, something like that. Like, it's really easy to get caught in that like middle ground.
What does the Escapist coming back mean for you, or for any, like, is it good news that this thing has kind of been revived in this alternative way, or like what is that how does that speak to you?
I think that games media could always use more voices and more diverse voices. So I think it's great. They used to have a really strong, solid content lineup, and all of that's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And also that's more jobs for people like me and other people within the industry. So, right on. Good for Movie Bob and Yahtzee and the loading run people and all of them. Like, good on them.
Yeah, I can't imagine that your response to that would have been like, you know what, man, I think that's just one too many. That'd be a little strange.
Like
probably bad news in some way.
We should have stopped at Polygon.
Well, I mean, there's that angle as well. Moving away from that, though, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, like spotting new content creators, like how, and I want to link it into kind of like, is there a way to know or predict or maybe even push out what is the audience expecting next? Like, what are audiences wanting right now that maybe they're not getting, or that they're just getting their first taste of, that you can go, this is a content creator, he's or she has something that I want to kind of connect with, what I think the audience will connect with, or like what's hot? How do you connect new up and comers with the new hotness?
Well, so what I used to do back when I was like really having to like look for people to like possibly bring on or partner with or collab with, was like people who like really wanted to do it, like people who were just like this is like that is their passion. And then two was like just finding people who are like hovering around maybe 1,000 views and just like watching it and being like, am I entertained by this? Would someone else be entertained by this? And if yes, I would send them a message and be like, hey, we can give you exposure, you can get to go to events and whatnot, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we made very little money at the Gamer Access at the time. So
where are you now, if not Gamer Access?
I am with Sticks and Crits. Thomas
joint. King. Mm-hmm.
Yep, his joint. I'm helping run the West Coast staff, and then I also I technically work for Murder Palace still, though like stuff is kind of on hold there. And then,
what's Murder Palace? I love the technically as well.
So like me and my friend Ray, who's also at Sticks and Crits, we're kind of a duo. It's like it's you hire one of us, you have to hire both of us. Sweet. In most cases.
Mm-hmm.
And we they were that Detoid thing I told you about, where we got linked up with them, and they've had a project behind the scenes that we're working on, but it's kind of on hold right now. So we're just waiting to hear like, all right, well they said they'd give us a call when it's ready to go. Mm-hmm. So as for, and then the Gamer Access, before we left, we gave them a bunch of me and Ray gave them a bunch of content. We hooked them up with a couple new creators to be like, hey, you guys treated us really well. You guys were my first like real job and like my first E3 and my first PAX, so on and so forth. So I'm gonna do right by you guys. Make sure you guys have like months worth of stuff ready to go when I'm outie.
What year was it? Was your first E3? Which also implies you went back to E3, so I want to talk about
that. 2014.
Okay, so what was happening back then? 2014 would have been a year after, we're a year into. Actually, it would have been the first E3 that we had Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
Yeah, so that was a really good one to attend.
No doubt.
I actually could have went to 2012 and 2013. It's just that like financial stuff kind of hit me at the worst possible times.
Because where in the world are you?
I'm in Reno, Nevada.
Right. So it's not too bad, but still, like getting over there and staying.
It's more the hotel thing, man. Like, especially because like if you want a hotel that's near that convention center, that is pricey.
A couple $100 a night for sure.
Yeah, and like we were, we were a small like 8-man team, and like 6 of us could go, and it's like, well, you're looking at a hotel, it's $400 or $500 a night, even when it's split 6 ways for like a week.
Is it because do the prices go up because of E3? Is it that big?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
like
I guess it would be.
The JW Marriott that's across the street's like $500-$600 a night.
That's insane, man. I just supposed to spit out my coffee. That's crazy. Because I've been to New York Comic Con, and I just think because especially New York, and I don't know if I guess LA would be similar to this, like just the mecca cities, right? Just massive, massive cities, impossibly large for especially a Canadian like me, just to try to understand how millions and millions of people all pack into this dense space. So for me, like I look at like a New York Comic Con and think, well, there's a couple tens of thousands of people who descend into New York, but like that's nothing compared to the 10 million people who live in that area or whatever it is. And I thought that can't affect hotel prices that much, but I think that it has to. Like it's people coming out, and it's not necessarily impacting the 8 million people who live there, but it's absolutely impacting all at once the tourist industry.
Unless you do what PAX does, and some smaller cons do, where they negotiate with the hotels in the surrounding area, like the rates go crazy, especially because like you look at the JW, for example, that's where Sony stays. That's where I want to say EA and Nintendo stay as well. And it's like, well, they don't care what it's priced, and they're just going to buy out an entire hallway, and like they don't care.
Yeah.
It's like so like, but like if you're us cramming 5-6 people in 1 to 2 hotel rooms, it's a different animal. As for my first E3, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Had a great time. Worked nonstop. Got a lot of good interviews.
Remind me what was being highlighted at that point, like. And what was the mood too as we're going into the new? Remember, like 2014, 2013, even 2012, consoles weren't supposed to be much. They weren't going to happen anymore. We were all going to be playing games on our phones back then. So I'm trying to get a sense of like from the ground floor at E3, like what was the feeling like?
It was actually kind of pretty positive. Yeah. Like I remember Nintendo's booth, like Smash was going on constantly. Xbox Xbox had a lot of like really good stuff that year. Like Sunset Overdrive was getting promoted really heavily. They had that giant. Do you remember the giant like blimp boss from that game?
Yeah, man. I remember that. I remember that trailer very specifically because I remember when the trailer started and it looked like a military shooter, and I literally said out loud, I so don't need another military shooter. And then the trailer switches over to like the nonsense that is Sunset Overdrive. I'm like, those guys got me so good. Like that was so perfect.
That was a really good showing for Microsoft. I remember we came out of that show, like no one on our staff at that point besides me had bought an Xbox One at that point. And I bought it just for Killer Instinct.
Yes!
Yes, I am a fighting game junkie. We'll get into that a little later. But and then like we came out of it and everyone on our staff was like, dude, I gotta buy an Xbox One. Because Master Chief Collection looked great, Sunset Overdrive, Forza, like it was just a really good show for Xbox. And then Sony, like it was a good showing, but also like some of the games that were announced during that are still not out now.
Come on, really?
Yeah, like that Final Fantasy VII remake.
Well, right. That was the show of dreams, of course.
Yeah, Shenmue 3, that was still not a thing. Last Guardian came out even later than expected. Like, it was just... That was a really weird year for Sony, and, like, I was not... My problem with Sony's press conferences, like, from, like, then onward, it's, like, they always show stuff that's, like, really far out. So, like, I actually kind of had to create a rule for when, like, doing the press conference grades on podcasts. If you don't give me a release window, I don't count it.
Like as coverage, or that you don't even consider it as part of the show? Like, what do you mean count it?
Like, when I go, like, we used to give grades to each press conference, like 8F. And like we like talk about like all the stuff that they're putting out. It's just like if you do not at least give me a release window, I do not count it as something you showed me because it's the Sony rule.
Yeah.
Like, especially because on the other side, Microsoft always does stuff that's like this is the next 365 days.
Yeah.
And it's never as impressive, but it's always like I'm gonna be able to play that soon, and it's typically on the show floor versus Sony where it's like you might get to play this if you have a meeting with them, or it's shown behind closed doors, or it's just like a gameplay demo that like you watch.
Well, I know like people know me as the Xbox fanboy, which is garbage because I even have my Wii U still plugged in here, guys. Like it's right, I can touch it. I can touch my Wii U. I can turn it on if you wanted me to. And so I can hear people already screaming like, well, let's talk about Crackdown 3, let's talk about Scalebound and a few others. And so with that out of the way, I think that everybody's got like their sense of that, but I do feel like Sony is probably the most egregious with it. Actually, even Nintendo the last little bit. We've got Metroid Prime 4 coming at some point. We sort of had like 2019 for Animal Crossing, and so I wanted Pokemon was actually the one that I was thinking of. I'm like, which was the other one that we don't know? I guess it's 2019, sort of.
Yeah, but like Nintendo is also like typically they'll show a couple of those, but they'll also show like this stuff is coming out in 6 months.
Yeah,
here you go. And also they participate in E3 in a weird way.
I kind of like it, dude. I really actually they're kind of giving E3 the finger in a way, which I don't like. I don't want them to be aggressive against E3, but I do like the fact that they can do whatever they want throughout the entire year, and it just makes the rest of the year as exciting as E3. And they've really managed to carve themselves out a little bit of a niche. Now, going back as we like kind of like evaluate this generation, you know, like, and I've definitely got my problems with especially that particular E3 and everybody like losing their minds and rushing out to go get their PlayStation because of those 3 games. And then even with Death Stranding, when they hired on Hideo Kojima, they're like, well, now I definitely need a PS4. It's like, well, his game isn't coming out to that console at all. So with all of those things in mind, and like these things worked for them, like would you, and I appreciate the notion of if I don't get a release date, then I don't get any a window. I also think that translated over into pre-order laws in some places in Europe. That's like if it doesn't have a window at least, or maybe even a release date, you can't pre-order it, which I think is super interesting.
Like, give me just like a season and a year, man. Like they did, like Devil May Cry, like spring 2019. Okay, it is coming out sometime between March and June of next year.
Yeah. Would you say you're an Xbox guy?
I would say I'm a PC guy.
PC guy, yeah.
I own all the platforms, but
some trolls out there are saying that's the same thing. You know, like what's the difference? Why would I get an Xbox when I can play PC?
It's like
it's my best troll voice.
Like I'm a turncoat because I used to be really into the 360 camp, and then like went to the PS3 camp, and then like my primary platform has changed so much, but then like when I hit like my early-ish to mid-20s, like I went all in on PC.
Did you?
Yeah, like my last rig I built in 2016, and it has a 1080 in it and an i7-6700K, and it's like I just built this super tricked out rig, and it's like what, like with the exception, you know, the Switch is a different animal, I feel. But like
yeah.
Compared to the Xbox One X and the PS4, like why would you not play on PC is almost the way I feel about it. Because like, yes, the initial cost is more expensive, though that might be changing slowly. We're at the point where we're selling, you know, $400 and $500 boxes right now.
That is pretty crazy.
But so like, with the exception of like the starting price, like games are cheaper. You have more controller options. It is actually backwards compatible. You know, like my first PC I built in 2004, and it was to play Half-Life 2.
Yes.
And I was 14 at the time.
Do you remember what you put in it?
Yes, I actually have it sitting in the other room.
Come on, do you really?
I do. It had a Pentium 4,
Yep.
2.4 gigahertz,
Amazing.
512 megs of RAM,
Yeah, man.
a GeForce 5700 FX.
Wait, 2004, 512 megabytes of RAM?
Yeah, I went to 1 gig a year later.
We have come so far because it sounds like you put together like a screaming machine for like you set out to build like a gaming rig. So
Yeah,
512 would have been a lot at the time.
yeah. So like,
I guess it was 14 years ago.
yeah, which I mean,
Good
and
God.
the, and like, played Half-Life 2, maxed out settings on 800 by 600, which is what my monitor was.
Yep. What kind of monitor
So,
did you have?
oh, I had one of those big CRTs.
I love it.
I didn't get my first LCD computer monitor until 2009.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I also didn't get my first HGTV until 2008. So,
I mean, I
uh,
guess so, right? Yeah, like because the 360 was 2006.
came out in '05, November '05.
Oh,
I,
okay,
I,
yeah.
I very distinctly remember that console launch. It's actually one of my favorite console launches ever.
How come?
Because I love Cameo and PGR3 and DOA 4 came
Yeah.
out. Like DOA 4, I got to S rank online, double S rank, and it was and like that's one of my favorite fighting games ever is DOA 4, and that came out like a month after that system launched, and just like
Hmm.
it like fixed the only problems I had with the original Xbox of like okay, it has Japanese games now.
Hmm.
It has cross game voice chat, which I wanted, so me and my friends didn't have to have a second like computer on.
Hmm.
It had custom soundtracks in every game.
Like right
Like it
out of
just
the gate, didn't it? Like all these things
yeah
that didn't really even make it over to the Xbox One, even like Party Chat was broken to all get out when it launched.
yeah
What
no
the
like
heck?
the 360 was so ahead of its time,
Yeah,
man.
that's a good point, dude. Talk to me about Cameo because I believe it was on your Twitter profile or something. I feel like, maybe I'm making this up. Is you are
That,
the
that,
only person on the internet who wants a Cameo too?
yeah, pretty much. Like I talked to the direct like I've talked to the like head of Rare like once at E3 being like, all right, man, Sea of Thieves looks great. Like I did the interview for it, and
Yep.
afterwards I was like, this game looks awesome, but
But seriously,
Cameo too, man. When's it happening?
what did he
Uh,
say? Like, I bet nobody is asking him that question. And to your point of you're the only one in the world who wants this.
yeah, so really, that's cool. Actually, it just like I love transforming different monsters. It was a really well made action adventure, and like it was just could resonated with me, I guess, really well. The soundtrack was beast. Like every part of that game was incredibly underrated, and they were working on a sequel and it got canceled. And he's like, yeah, maybe one day.
I'm gonna have to tweak that just a little bit. Your internet went out and then came back in, so I'm gonna ask you one more time about as if you can answer that one more time, if you don't mind. I'm so sorry, man.
Uh,
What was his reaction? You must have been like the only person. Nobody else. Everybody is there asking about Sea of Thieves.
so
You ask him about Cameo.
yeah, so he's like very happy to hear that. For one, two is I'm not the only person who wants that game to happen.
Okay.
Surprisingly, it's not common, but I'm not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's like, yeah, maybe one day. Like we had a sequel planned. You can see cut content about it in the Rare Replay.
Mm-hmm. So for people who don't
So
know, Cameo at all, like what kind of game are we talking about here?
so it's an action adventure where you play this like fairy princess who has this ability to shapeshift into different monsters
Mm-hmm.
to complete different missions. So like in combat, you change into like a man-eating plant who has like boxing gloves on, and like you turn into a dragon. You turn into like this rock monster that fires boulders like machine guns, and like you use those different forms to turn. You use those different forms to like solve puzzles or beat bosses or do combat stuff. And like the stuff I really liked is like you turn this like uh, armadillo rock monster and like launch off ramps and like transform mid jump to this like yeti thing that has like icicles so you can stick in the wall like
Mm-hmm.
in Tomb Raider. And it was just like this is so weird and awesome, and like the art is charming and the music's great, and it's like why the hell did no one buy this?
Well, and it got a second life as well on Rare Replay, but I feel like nobody really paid attention or much attention to that. Maybe Killer Instinct was on there. Like, of Rare Replay, what were the games that you kind of went back to?
Viva Pinata.
Yeah, man.
Man, yeah, that's man.
How many
there are a
hours you
lot-
dump into that game?
Oh, dude, like 30 plus
Like,
easily.
I mean, it can be endless as well. But it's
Yeah,
also
like-
got this nice like wrap around it. It does seem like it's not quite like Animal Crossing where you play like 700 hours. Like it does seem like it's got an objective at the very least.
Yeah, get all the pinatas.
Yeah.
Get them pinatas to hook up.
Yeah, it's so weird. You get over it quickly though.
Yeah, you get them through their little weird bomb maze, and then they bang by dancing.
That's right.
And
That's
they
how
have
it works in the real world.
Yeah, then they have amazing names like Horstachio.
That's rare at its best, in my opinion. It's just like
Yeah.
go make up weird names for like weird looking pinata insect animal things.
I really like going back to Battletoads, actually.
Nice.
Ray and I streamed Battletoads, like an entire playthrough of it.
Have you really?
We streamed an entire playthrough of Super Battletoads.
You know, like the majority of people on the planet have never seen anything past, of course, like the speed racers.
Yeah, no, that part took a while.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Like, that game caused a lot of rage on stream, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun. It was really cool. But I really like that. So, one of the games that actually really irritates me on Rare Replay and from Rare in general that no one, like outside of like a handful of people, don't consider to be a good game, but it's amazing, is Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts.
Dude, I'm the same way. Every time somebody says they're like, oh, Nuts and Bolts, I'm like, I don't know, like, if I'm completely out of my mind here, but I kind of like Nuts and Bolts quite a bit.
I got turned on to that game by Brad Shoemaker over at Giant Bomb when he was talking about it on the Bombcast. I'm like, I don't know, man. They're doing weird stuff with Banjo, but I'll give it a shot.
Yep.
And like, dude, that game was so great. Like,
yes.
Like just all the different creative things you could do to beat these missions, like, and then you'd like go into the top like 20 where they have videos of how people did, and you're like, how the hell did this guy do this in like 10 seconds? And he creates some like a weird contraption that's like, how did he even think of that?
I know. Well, it's got like that little touch of like Minecraft, but also like a little bit of like Mod Nation Racers or Crash Team Racing, but also like the 3D mascot thing. Like I feel like that's where games should have gone, at least in a way, because everybody just took their mascot and threw it on a kart racer. You got Sonic, you got Crash Team Racing, you got all these things, and it's like, who cares? You got Little Big Planet Racing, who cares? I loved that was the direction that Banjo-Kazooie went, but it wasn't like the 3D collectathon, the mascot collectathon thing was so ubiquitous everywhere. So if you ever went like off script a little bit, people were like, they wrote it off completely. But now I think we need that type of game more than ever. Like where they're actually coming back a little bit, like those 3D mascot thing. Like Mario's back and Spyro's and Crash is back with their remasters, and Ratchet and Clank had an excellent game in 2015, I think. Hat
in Time was pretty good. You know, like there's room for 3D platformers. You just have to do them really well. Like Mario Odyssey was my game of the year last year.
Was it really?
Yeah.
It did not click with me.
You want to know what game didn't click with me that caused many an argument during Game of the Year awards? Is Horizon Zero Dawn.
Can we connect even more, Bronson? Like, unbelievable. I'm exactly the same. I could not care less about anybody that she like met in her time. Like anything that had to do with either the future or the past, like the deep past, I was like, I'm all into this. But anytime I had to go do a mission to like help somebody, I'm like, I don't care. I think you look silly. I think all like the tribal stuff, really, really big miss for me, because I thought the start of it was so good. I really liked the it wasn't her dad. It was like almost like her dad.
It was like her adoptive father.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I thought that relationship was really cool, but like not really, didn't really play out in a way that I think maxed out its potential.
I remember, like, I was actually at the bi-weekly fight night I do every week, and we were talking about that game, and I'm like, yep, that's the best 7.5 I played all year.
I don't know if I go that 7.5. Okay, that's in the conversation, I guess.
I'm like, man, its presentation is great. The beginning and end of the story is really good. I don't care about the middle. I think the gameplay just kind of feels like a more polished Assassin's Creed, like standard 3D world RPG. Like when people went bananas for
They
that
really
game.
did.
And like we went into the Game of the Year awards, and like Mario got put at 3, and the discussion was between Horizon and Zelda,
Of
like
course.
Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, everyone in this room is insane if you think Horizon is better than Zelda. And it ended up being a 4-2 vote in favor of Zelda. Thank God.
I think the one thing that I will say before too many people throw all the hate about Horizon Zero Dawn, because it seems like that's a long time ago that we're also bringing this up. Like, let's talk about how that was definitely not 2018 Game of the Year. First out of the gate, though, like, completely different game than that team has ever done before, and brand new IP. Like, I feel like they did a solid job with that, like, creating a new world for us to explore. I think it was really, really good. Because especially if you think about, like, remember, like, Mass Effect, when Mass Effect first came out, we really really good, with some glaring issues, obviously.
Yeah,
and
I think it's very similar to Mass Effect in actually a lot of ways. Like, because the first Mass Effect I was very lukewarm on, but then like Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games.
Same here, dude. That's one of the only role-playing games that I've played multiple times. I've played through that multiple times, and it's just like, it's just so good, and it's sprawling enough, but not it's not like Dragon Age crazy. Like, you can pretty much complete that and do a pretty good job. You can definitely pass the suicide mission within 35 hours, which is pretty. That's doable.
Yeah, like, I traditionally don't like Western RPGs.
Okay.
I don't really care for any. I think the Fallout games are kind of bad. I cannot wait to read the comments on this. By the way,
I was just thinking, man. Like, one of my questions was like, what are some of your favorite games from 2018? But maybe we should slam a few more games from the past before we get on.
Just like,
what are other people's favorite games that you wanna trash right now?
Oh, what other sacred cow could I butcher?
Yeah. Exactly.
But no, the fact that, like, I wasn't really big on Skyrim. I liked Oblivion a lot.
Yep. Same here.
I thought The Witcher was okay. Like,
I went back to The Witcher. I went back. I held that opinion for a good year and a half, and then I went back and was like, okay, no, I get it. And it was because I just don't think I do this with a couple games, Bronson, where I did it with Destiny as well, where, like, I didn't understand, like, what the even makeup of the game, like, what the point was, what was I supposed to be enjoying from it. I knew it was a shooter, and I knew that there was, like, the loot loop, kind of like Borderlands a little bit, but I was still somewhat looking for, like, a Mass Effect kind of story, I guess. I didn't really understand the MMO parts of it and, like, why those would have been appealing. So by the time Destiny 2 came around, I was like, okay, I get it. I've started to play a few of these games, and I appreciated it for what it is. And the same with The Witcher 3. I think after playing Assassin's Creed Origins, actually, is when I went back to that and went like, okay, this isn't as scary or complicated as I thought it was, or too deep.
I actually went back to The Witcher 3 after the Game of the Year awards that year, because that is the most heated Game of the Year debate I've ever been in.
What about Overwatch?
That year it was kind of like unanimous. We all put it at 4th.
Oh, really? Okay.
Though I remember 2016 was probably the easiest Game of the Year I've ever done. Like, we got to the top 5, and I suggested an order, and everyone was like, "Yeah, sure."
So what did you have? Was that Uncharted year? That was Uncharted, Doom.
Yeah, so Uncharted was like our number 7, I think.
Okay.
Because the way we did it is everyone did an individual top 10, so you can see the staff's top 10, and then we did a group top 10 that we all would bicker and argue over for 3 to 4 hours.
I love it.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. But that year, I remember the top 4 being Overwatch, Hitman, Titanfall 2.
Wow.
Doom. Doom was Game of the Year that year.
And
it was really, because normally, like, when we get to that bottom 5, it's like Knives Out, everyone's staring across the table. Last year was a good case of that with, like, Horizon, Persona, Mario, and Zelda. But like that, yeah, it was just like, okay, this is the order: Stardew Valley 5, Overwatch 4, Hitman 3, Titanfall 2, Doom 1. Is everyone on this table? Is everyone at this table okay with this? And everyone sat there for a second, and they're like, yes.
That's amazing. It's amazing you don't have Forza Horizon 3 in there at all, man. I'm a little offended.
It made the top 10.
I'm just kidding.
It was actually... No, Uncharted was 8. Forza was 7. Because what happened was I tried to get Forza as high as I could, but like Thomas loves Civ 6 far too much.
How is how is it working with him on these lists? You guys battle it out, or are you mostly in line?
We're actually fairly in line, like
Yeah.
more than you would think. There are a few exceptions, like I worked with him on only one of those, which was that year, and like the Uncharted argument was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
The Witcher expansion argument was a big one. But then like we
Oh
got into
yeah.
yeah, then we got into like that top five, and it was just like super easy.
The last couple of
I,
years, that's a good point. The last couple of years, we've had like 2017, we had like PUBG breaking the rules, and then 2016, yeah, was that 2016 for the Blood and
yeah,
Wine?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
So we like always trying to like, how do we like? There's nothing. I don't think that there's anything like that for 2018, unless you start to think about like maybe some of these games that are on Switch that like
So
people are only discovering now.
so we have a hard and fast rule, which was no early access allowed. You have to be officially out, and you have to be officially out by December 7th, because we do the
Mm.
recording on December 21st.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, if your official release date is after December 7th, we push you into next year.
Mm-hmm.
That was our rules at the time. And, and like this year has been like really slow for games in my mind. Like
Hmm.
last year it felt like every other week I was playing like, oh dude, I want to play that, I want to pick that up. Nier, Resident Evil, Yakuza, like just the list went on.
Snap. No kidding.
And like this year, I was like, it's been really slow. Like I'd go weeks without buying a new game or looking into a new game to like play. I'm just like, whatever.
That still sounds hilarious to me, though. It's like, oh my god, I went at least 17 days without buying a new game. Like, oh, this is the slowest year. What a drought that we've had all year. Like,
Yeah, like it's weird to think about, but like when you compare it to like the last 3 years, where it's just like last 3 4 years, where it's just like just seems like every month there's like
mhm.
2 3 awesome titles. You asked me about like what my game of the year was this year so far, and what my favorites are.
Mhm.
Dragon Ball Fighters is by far my game of the year.
Real well, yeah, you're a fighting guy, so talk to me about this.
Okay, so that is the most I've enjoyed a fighting game since original Street Fighter 4.
Mm-hmm.
I love Dragon Ball as well, but so they took Marvel versus Capcom, they made it a little more player friendly and like tweak some things, and it's just this. It's so addictive. Like I can't remember the last time I went into like training mode for one of these games and just like sat there and just like practice shit over
Mm-hmm.
and over and over and over, and still found it like super fun and engaging.
What
And
is
like
what is like the dopamine hit that you get? Like, what is it about the fighting game? Because I've completely fallen off. Like back in the day, it was like Street Fighter 2 tournaments at neighbor Matt's house all the time, and that was it. Or even like you said, Marvel versus Capcom, and it was just like, I don't know, maybe the competition was what I was getting out of it. So I'm always curious, like, what do people get out of the games that kind of like tickle their fancy?
So for me, it's like I'm a very competitive person, so
Okay.
fighting games come into that,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's like chess on speed, because it's this mind game of like, okay, what is he doing? What am I doing? What'll get like how? Because in Dragon Ball, especially in Marvel, it's like, okay, I need to be able to land one hit, and then I can go into my crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's like, okay, how am I gonna get that one hit? How am I gonna get that hit so I can go into my big crazy 3-man combo? And and it's like just spacing and the neutral game and like all these different like factors. It's just so much to learn and
Yep.
enjoy and engage with, and like just like when you like last night was our fight night actually. Um, we have a bi-weekly fight night up at a friend of mine's house, and
Amazing.
like we saw this game where it was like two people who are new, and we spent most of the night teaching them how to do stuff, how to react to stuff, how to execute things in Dragon Ball. And this one guy, he just could not do the level 3, the ultimate, for any of his characters. Like he just couldn't get that quarter circle motion down. And like he's in this super tight match against like one of the veterans there, and like they get down to like they're both down to their final characters. They both are like barely any health left. He's playing. He jumps over an attack. The dude whiffs, and then he uses that level 3 to win it. And just like everyone goes, "Oh my fucking god, he did it! He did it!" Like just I also think part of that those kind of games in particular is like the community aspect as well, like
Yeah.
of just like Like I know people, like especially at work, who will go up to me and be like, "Yo, do you want to get together and practice Dragon Ball tonight?" And it's this, and it was that way with Street Fighter and Marvel's Capcom, where it's like it's competitive, and then those hype moments, like all the work you put into like cause that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one of our guys who goes to our fight night was actually top 64 in Street Fighter at Evo last year.
No way.
Yeah, and man, does it show.
Oh, really? Just like knows the game completely, like inside, because those guys know like the game on like a frame by frame basis. Like they know how many frames it takes for like a particular animation, right?
Yeah, like he's best in the state in Tekken, one of the best in the world in Street Fighter.
Oh
When we
my
play,
gosh.
and when we play either of those, dude, it shows.
Yeah.
Like in Street Fighter, when I have like a close match against him, like I'm proud.
No kidding. Yeah, and he's probably taking it easy on you as well.
Yeah, probably.
Dude, I love the way that you kind of like crystallize those two moments, because I feel like there's a lot of people who listen to that like maybe had a previous love for fighting games, but that had fallen off. Like a lot of people kind of have, but like you just reminded people of like two very critical moments, like especially when you talk about Killer Instinct and like that combo starter, and then you're just like, how far is this thing gonna go? And you're like, oh snap, this thing is out of control, like 64 hit combo, this is crazy. And then that like, I've got one sliver. Like, if they fart on me, my guy's going to die. You know what I mean? But, like, having that comeback is so... Everybody has had that moment, whether you're super skilled or you're just a button masher.
I think the thing about fighting games, because we've been trying to grow the scene in the area. Like, there's this local group that plays, and then, like, we've been trying to get our friends into it. And the hardest part about fighting games is that barrier to entry of, like, you really got to practice and learn shit, which is why, like, sometimes our fight nights, instead of being just weekly tournaments where, Brian beats on everyone, except for Dragon Ball where me and Robert beat on everyone, is like sitting down and going, okay, like, new people, we're going to go in training mode. It's like, all right, this is how you do this super. This is how you do a super. This is why you don't super dash across the entire screen. This is why you do this. And just, like, slowly practicing and getting them up to speed, because like once you get to the part of the game where you're like proficient, or like at least somewhat proficient, fighting games are the most addictive thing in the world.
Right, because it gives you something to work on instead of like that nebulous, like, I'm just trying to win. I don't know exactly like what do I work on my defense? Do I work on like my combo stars? Do I start on, like, it just kind of gives you like pieces of it to go, if I can nail that every single time, then I can move on to the next thing. It's like a curriculum that you build for yourself.
Right, and like in my case, like I won't practice unless there's someone better than me, which is it's just a bad habit. Like it's like, well, if I'm the best player here, then I'm not gonna want to put more effort in, which is great because my friend Robert in that same group is in training mode every single day. I log on to Steam and see him in Dragon Ball FighterZ every single day in practice mode.
Oh my gosh, dude, I can't imagine.
And it makes me, and like, it keeps me honest and like playing it consistently and getting better, because it's like, okay, I do not want to get smoked at fight nights. So yeah, like that's, I think that's been my game of the year. Like that, I always enjoy fighting games, but that's the first one where I've like literally just gone into training mode and really dissected the game and like started to learn frame data and like.
How does that help, though? Like, I get that that's a thing, but, like, how does that actually, like, help you beat somebody?
Because you need to know how many frames to do a certain move and, like, what the startup is on it. So, like, for example, if they're doing X thing that requires 3 frames and the thing that you can do requires 2, you're going to come out faster. You're going to get the advantage in that situation and have better spacing or better spacing, or you're going to get a hit, or, whatever it is. There's a guy who does a lot of videos on this called Core A Gaming. He's a fighting game YouTuber who does, like, intense breakdowns of, like, everything from mind games to Salt to, becoming proficient. Like, he's... if you want to see, like, nerdy-ass breakdowns of, like, fighting game culture, it's... Yeah. That's the guy you go to.
I love that most games, like most genres, do have that. Like, if you want to get into it, like there's some stuff you can get into. Every role playing game is kind of like the no-brainer. Strategy games are no-brainers. Fighting games, people are starting to come at a more mainstream level. People are starting to understand that there's this intense, like, almost like a university that you can go to understand how to be good at these games. I love that if you just want to like completely nerd out about a genre, then you can absolutely do that.
I love that. I used to be a big WoW junkie. I was actually in my teenage years. I was in the top 100 guild in the world.
Well, how does that even tracked? Like, I don't even understand. You could be just saying these things. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. But like, how do we verify this? It's like my friend saying I was the best Mario Kart player in North America.
So in WoW, what it is there are these websites where you submit your raid boss kills. And like your time and your date, and you screen cap it and everything. And now they just have stuff that auto tracks that because because Blizzard is ahead of the curve. Yeah, so like it used to be just like, okay, hey, we're like, hey, we downed this boss, post it in our server forums, send it into the websites that track all that crap, and it's like, okay, so Knights of the Alliance on X server. It, was the third guild on their server to kill this, and like 85th in the world to do it. And that's how they would keep track of that up until now, where it's just there's just giant.
So for anybody who's interested in getting into fighting games, because Dragon Ball Fighters and Fighter Z, or however anybody wants to say it, or how they know it, that was a big hit. A lot of people were talking about it earlier this year. It's hard to even remember that it was 2018 that this thing happened.
It came out the end of January.
Right.
That game. Honestly, I think the game's actually a good starting point because supers are really easy to do. Like the timing, it's not like older fighting games where the timing on it's really harsh.
Yeah, like finishing moves in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, and then also like the fact that it has auto combo buttons.
Right.
Where like, yeah, those aren't going to give you the best damage. They're not going to like what you want. Like they're not going to be able to keep someone in the air forever. But it's a good starting point where it's like, okay, if I mash square, I will do a cool-looking, competent combo.
Yeah.
Or if I mash triangle, I will do a cool-looking combo into a super if I have bar.
It gives people enough of like, it's not too much of a barrier. You can button mash a little bit and something looks cool. But like for anybody who knows what they're doing, they're like, well, that's that thing. That's the entry level stuff. But that's okay. Yeah, easy way to get around it.
Yeah, it's just like, there's plenty of ways you can get out of auto combos and like not have to worry about it. But like when you're first starting out, like it at least gives you a fighting chance, sort of, if you know what you're doing.
So what else about the last thing I wanted to ask you about was D&D though, because you mentioned Sticks and Cricks. I was talking to Thomas King's been on the show a couple times actually. Him and I were just chatting the other day about something we might be up to.
I call him a massive. Okay, so I'm the wrong person to ask about D&D.
Okay, well I wanted to ask you like kind of what your connection to D&D was more than anything.
Okay, so my connection to D&D is I have played it at 2 separate PAX as I went to when prompted by friends. It was fun, but I'm not super into tabletop.
Yeah, glowing endorsement.
And like so. The Sticks and Crit staff is broken up into East Coast, West Coast. And the East Coast guys really are focused on tabletop right now. The West Coast, we're really focused on video games. It doesn't mean we'll branch over. We got guys on the West Coast who are really into Magic. They got guys on the East Coast who are going to be reviewing video games. But for the most part, we're kind of locked away on separate ends in a lot of ways. So, like, anytime they post something on the Instagram or Twitter that's about a tabletop game, my response is just like, have you ever seen Dragon Ball Abridged? Do you know when Piccolo screams "nerd"? It is just a picture of Piccolo screaming "nerds."
That is so good, dude.
Like,
and only geeks get that whole thing about like calling somebody else a nerd, but you're like the biggest nerd of them all. Like it's just that is like the best joke to me, man. I love that.
Yeah, like I just like every time they post something, I either comment that or just yell at them, "Fucking nerds!"
I love it. Oh my gosh, dude. Oh man, we kind of covered like I got notes across my whole page. I can pick different titles for this show, different thumbnails and everything. But man, if anybody wants to chat with you on the internet or have them on, I know a lot of people make their own podcasts. They want to have you on. Like, how do people get in touch with you on the Twitter or wherever else you're at?
I am at GameCraft with a K.
What's that about? I want to ask you about the craft. Is like craft dinner? Please tell me it's craft dinner.
No, it's
Damn it.
Okay. So what it was is way back in the fun year of 2008, 2009. That I got started with a couple of friends by making a small gaming site, and it was called GameCraft. and that was my Twitter handle at GameCraft, and it just
It's a
kind of
sweet
stuck.
name, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's just like yeah, no, I'm surprised no one's taken it.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, man, he's the original GameCraft. Like he doesn't. It's not even like GameCraft underscore 27 or something like that.
Yeah,
This is
it was
really
pretty
good.
sweet. So yeah, you can contact me on there for sure. Like that's probably the best way because like my Facebook is kind of private and I'm a little more like
Real life.
if I, yeah, real life or like actual people I've met at an event at minimum.
Fair.
Like I know like I've met Rachel Moore through when we covered CES. I've met I'm not sure if you know Robert Workman. He worked over at Prima Games. Like just kind of like people like that. Where it's like okay, like you're in the industry and I've like met you in real life.
It's funny how that works on this on the various social media. Like it's
Yeah.
different. You allow different people in or out or whatever.
Well,
That's funny.
because like Facebook, like I'm willing to I like post more personal stuff, or
Mhm.
like I'll get into rants about like politics on the internet
Mm.
versus like my Twitter, which I kind of keep it either I'm joking around or like business
Yeah.
versus my Facebook, and also like my family's on my Facebook, which that's another reason why I'm like I don't want every like possible stalker on the internet following me on Facebook, so you will also know where my mother and aunt and family are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's that one.
Facebook's done a nice job of keeping our mothers and aunts all over there, and Twitter's done a nice job of keeping them the hell away from there.
Yeah, like Twitter. My Twitter is almost nothing but like industry people.
Same here. Yeah, gaming is my Twitter, which is funny because I have like my first and last name as my Twitter. It seems like it would be the personal one, but it's not. It's all games. But Bronson, man, this was so much fun, man. I can't believe we just blew through an entire hour talking about God knows what.
Yeah, I know, man. That went by quick.
No kidding. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
For sure. If you're ever on the West Coast, we'll have you on the Sticks and Crits West Coast podcast that we're gonna be doing soon.
Sweet, man. Yes, I've told Thomas like whatever it happens, like we can line it up. It'll be amazing. I want to talk to him about a couple things that Thomas. I know you're listening. We're gonna chat soon. There's gonna be a thing soon. So thank you so much for being on the show, Bronson. I really appreciate it, dude.
For sure.
Episode 171 in the books. Guys, I've had 170 some odd conversations with people. That every now and then it kind of like strikes me as just kind of nuts that somebody could dig through all of these things. A lot of great conversations, all varieties, totally different conversation last week and the week before that and the week before that. I'm lining something up next week that I haven't got confirmation on just yet for Saturday to record, but I'm hoping to have something back to something very interesting, something I don't think we've really talked about on this. I'm thinking about like combing through using the Twitter, like the Twitter feed as like, oh, that would be a cool kind of like topic or at least jumping off point. And we'll see that's worked a couple times. That worked with Sarah Daniels. And as I get more into the Twitch community, it's just like, holy crap, I was in a podcast community, there's a streaming community, there's so many things, so many great people. Shout out to Matt Big Fat. It always messes up my brain. Cool dude on Twitch. I hope to have you on the, if you're checking this out, great. Thank you so much. I hope to have you on the show very soon. Guys, follow Bronson at GameCraft with a K, and I had to use some Killer Instinct music. Killer Instinct Enhanced over OC Remix. You can follow me at Sean Capri, follow the show at We The GamerCast, follow the website We The Nerdy. And if you guys like it, if you like this, if you like all the Twitch, if you like all the things, you can go to patreon.com/makeusbetter. It supports me and all the things I said at the top of the show, but it also supports PSVG, Warp Whistle, Nintendo Nostalgia, Bad Bit, and later on this week, I will have a massive announcement, a new goal. Let's just say you might be helping me quit my day job. We'll say that. We'll leave it at that. That's probably already said too much. But thank you to our artists, Gary Gray and Adam Leonard, for doing all the things, and our video designer, the hypecaster himself, Antonio Guillen. I got rid of Lincoln for this last little bit, and I thought maybe I'd talk about some other things. But instead I just like listen to the music instead. It's pretty sweet. You guys ever stop you guys ever want this song? You guys let me know. It's royalty free. I'll send you the music. Congratulations to everybody who's platinumed whatever came out last week, Spider-Man and Tomb Raider and all the games that have come out. Congrats for platinuming those. And Joe After Work, like a 72-hour marathon stream. Everybody was streaming this weekend. Jason Lacey was streaming. Caro Dude was streaming. So many things, guys. But I think this is the end of the episode, because otherwise, this is episode 171 of We the GamerCast now in your ears. Thank you again for being here. I'll be back next week. Now it's time for Jason. I timed it. That was okay. I thought I had more to say. But we'll talk to you guys next week. Maybe I'll have more to say next week. I don't want to just go on endlessly.
Jason! 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 Sean! 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 Sean, where are you? Jason! 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 Sean! 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 Jason! 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 Jason!